Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Bielbziski, and I'm the Inclusion and Access Consultant for Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to today's Inspiring Her to Lead panel discussion. I would like to acknowledge that SPRA's programs, services, and support reaches lands covered by Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10, the traditional territories of the Cree, Dakota, Dene, Lakota, Nakota, and Saulteaux peoples, and homeland of the Métis. We respect and honor the treaties and move forward with Indigenous nations in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. We are all treaty people. I would like to recognize our funder, Sask Lotteries. Through an agreement with the Government of Saskatchewan, proceeds from Sask Lotteries are dedicated to sport, culture, and recreation organizations throughout the province. These proceeds are placed in the Saskatchewan Lotteries Trust Fund for sport, culture, and recreation, which benefits more than 1,200 sport, culture, and recreation groups and helps nearly 1,000 communities. We are the only province in the country who enjoys this level of support, and for that, we are very grateful. On your control panel, you will see a questions tab. GoToWebinar has no chat feature for attendees. There is only the questions box. Be advised that anything submitted through the questions box will only be visible to meeting organizers and not the entire group. We will try to answer as many questions as possible, but are not always able to get through them all. Please be sure to submit your questions throughout the webinar to increase the likelihood that they will be answered. You're listening in using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. While you are on the webinar, you will be on mute, whether you're using a computer or your phone. We will not be using the raise hand feature. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we wanted to note that through today's discussion, we'll be using the term women, and that will be inclusive of all people who identify as women or girls. Without further ado, I would like to welcome and introduce our special guest this morning, Mari Petrosky. Mari Petrosky is the Executive Director of the Government of Saskatchewan's Status of Women Office. Prior to holding this position, Mari worked in the Interpersonal Violence and Abuse Unit as a Senior Policy Analyst for the Ministry of Justice. Before coming to work with the Government of Saskatchewan, Mari managed a community-based organization that worked with clients and families with complex needs. The role enabled her to learn in a diverse environment, and she gained a greater understanding of the struggles many people go through when attempting to access services and resources within various systems. The role also instilled a passion for advocacy and influencing inclusivity in Saskatchewan. Welcome, Mari.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I really appreciate that. And we were joking with the panelists about doing sending our profile pics in a selfie, and I said I actually did one, and I really did do one. That was on a beautiful day in Saskatchewan, where the sun is bright and shiny, and I hope you guys are experiencing that same type of weather. I'm joining you from Treaty 4 territory, and welcome all of those joining us from other territories across Saskatchewan. I'm pleased to bring greetings on behalf of the Government of Saskatchewan Status of Women Office and to be a part of today's event, Inspiring Her to Lead. I'd first like to recognize and thank the Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association for organizing and coordinating this special event to celebrate International Women's Day. SPRA's membership and networks, along with their resources, advocacy, programs, and services it provides, are essential to our communities, making way for greater inclusion and supporting the growth of female leaders in recreation. I'd also like to acknowledge the inspiring women leaders that will be participating in today's panel discussion. Twyla McDougall, the Deputy Minister responsible for our office, the Status of Women Office, and as well the Deputy Minister of Parks, Culture and Sport with the Government of Saskatchewan. Sheila Reniak, Executive Director for the Parkland Valley Sport, Culture and Recreation District. Crystal Longman, Community Consultant for the Prairie Central District for Sport, Culture and Recreation. And Mimi Loden, Fitness Trainer and Healthy Workplace Consultant with the Saskatchewan Health Authority and also a former SPRA board member. I'd also like to acknowledge this morning's host, Jamie Helgerson, who is the SPRA board member, Director for Towns, and the Director of Leisure Services with the town of Foam Lake. International Women's Day is commemorated across the world. It was acknowledged for the first time in 1911 and became celebrated and accepted by the United Nations in 1975. It came about through unrest and debate among women about the oppressions and inequalities they were experiencing. We continue to celebrate this really important day in recognition of women's achievements to raise awareness about the continued inequalities, to bring about gender parity, and bring attention to the important contributions at all levels that women make. The Status of Women Office acts as a catalyst within the government of Saskatchewan to ensure that gender is taken into consideration in government programs, in their legislation and policy making. We also bridge connections and bring attention to issues impacting women in Saskatchewan. For International Women's Day this year, we're highlighting 3 women in the field of advocacy, agriculture, and sport in our province. All 3 women featured have talked about how physical activity plays a really important role in their lives, as it does in my life as well. Kendra Weenie is an award-nominated author and inspirational speaker on interpersonal violence and also a workshop facilitator. She credits sport for helping her further her confidence, work ethic, and sense of identity. Sherilyn Nagel-Jolly is a farmer, a speaker, and advocate for global policy initiatives. She believes it is important living here in Saskatchewan to find ways to enjoy the outdoors any time of the year and encourage that enjoyment with our children. And then finally, Shelby Newkirk. She's an entrepreneur and an internationally recognized para-swim athlete who is a world record holder. She grew up participating in many physical activities where at age 13, she was diagnosed with a progressive nerve disorder. This didn't stop her. And soon she got involved in swimming as an outlet to feel free in the water and leave her wheelchair and crutches behind. This year's International Women's Day theme is Choose to Challenge. And all 3 women are examples of amazing people who have chosen to challenge the status quo. These videos will be posted on Saskatchewan.ca and the Government of Saskatchewan social media channels, and I encourage you to watch them and hear their impactful stories. Empowering women could not be more relevant than right now. Although a lot of progress has been made, COVID-19 brought a spotlight to the continued impacts that women experience. Women remain the main caregivers in their households. They predominantly hold jobs in the service sector and frontline caregivers, and they are often paid less than their male counterparts. Women also remain underrepresented on boards and in leadership positions. Despite all of this, women are contributors, they're collaborators, and achievers. Statistics show that when women participate and are successful, their entire communities benefit. The Status of Women Office moved to the Ministry of Parks, Culture and Sport this year, and the connection between the two is really powerful. The importance of gender equality and women leadership in recreation and sport is paramount. There are not a lot of female leaders in this sector and is still a male-dominated field. With that being said, there's a shift happening with more female staff representation and board composition than in past. In fact, the Ministry of Parks, Culture and Sport is led by an all-female complement, including the Minister, the Honorable Laura Ross. Women are creating opportunities to participate and contribute. The Prairie Women on Snowmobiles is a great example of this. The women snowmobilers ride across the province to raise funds for breast cancer research and treatment. They show how getting together to give back to a worthy cause by creating space in the snowmobile community for women can have a huge impact on their community. Women are a valuable resource. They are growing in economic power as they create opportunities for themselves and others across all sectors. At the Status of Women office, we're working hard to create a province where women can succeed. This past year has been challenging for us all. A year ago this week, we could have never imagined how COVID-19 would fundamentally change the way we communicate, the way we interact, the way we share information. It has stretched our boundaries and forced us to look at connection in a very different way and understand the importance of that connection in our day-to-day lives. In order to build gender equality and women's successful participation in areas like recreation, there needs to be reflective role models and mentors for women to look up to connect with, and to be inspired by. Opportunities like this one that we're taking part in today enable that to happen. Women and girls benefit by participating and hearing from leaders about their own leadership journeys, the challenges that they may have faced along the way, and about how their influence can shape the next generation. This morning, we acknowledge the achievements of not only women on the guest panel, but all women who are making waves in the world as contributors. And we're all important contributors in our own way. To the SPRA and all who have joined this event, thank you so much for everything you do on a daily basis to learn, lead, and create opportunities for others. I challenge you to observe how you choose to challenge in this world and create your own opportunities to connect and engage. I wish every one of you the best in your journey, and I'm looking forward to hearing the shared insights from our established panel today. Thank you so much for your time, and enjoy this wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Mari. Those were inspiring words, and we're very lucky today to have such wonderful role models with us to lead the panel discussion. So with that, I'm very pleased to introduce to you Jamie Helgeson, who will be moderating today's panel discussion. Jamie Helgeson is SPRA's Board of Directors, Fun-Loving Director for Towns, and this is her third term in this capacity. Jamie has served as Foam Lake's Director of Leisure Services since 2013, when she relocated back to her hometown of Foam Lake from Burnaby, BC, where she was working for the City of Burnaby's Parks and Cultural Services. Jamie shares her passion for recreation by building relationships within the industry, locally when assisting organizations, partnering and finding common ground, regionally through partnerships and information sharing with Parkland Valley Regional District, and provincially through board experience and networking with many talented and passionate recreation professionals in the industry. Jamie finds importance in investing in her community through active participation on Foam Lake and area's many boards and committees, including the Foam Lake Golf and Country Club, Foam Lake Co-op, Foam Lake Theatre Committee, and the High School Community Council. When she isn't acting as chief chauffeur and fan for her very active teenagers, Jamie enjoys time spent at the family's cabin, golfing and relaxing, and traveling, sorry. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jamie, and I'd like to say welcome to everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this day of celebrating women, and specifically strong leaders within our industry. I'm so very thankful today to be in the presence of such strong professional women, and I'd like to introduce each before we get going. So without further ado, our first panelist is Twyla McDougall, the Deputy Minister of Parks, Culture and Sport with the Government of Saskatchewan. Twyla has vast experience within the public sector with specific expertise in project management, consolidation and integration of business processing, financial management and change management. As Deputy Minister, Twyla's current responsibilities include executive management for Saskatchewan's provincial parks, the Royal Saskatchewan Museum, as well as legislative oversight for the Heritage Property Act, Saskatchewan Lotteries and Trust Fund. And prior to assuming the position of Deputy Minister, Twyla held Assistant Deputy Minister positions within the ministry for both the Parks Division as well as the Stewardship Division. Before working with Parks, Culture and Sport, Ms. McDougall served as Assistant Deputy Minister, Corporate and Financial Services of the Saskatchewan Energy and Resources. Ms. McDougall was actively engaged during a period of unprecedented change and transition with the Ministry of Energy and Resources when several government functions merged to form the Ministry of Economy. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Twyla. Thank you. Next panelist, Sheila Hiernuk, Executive Director, Parkland Valley Sport, Culture and Recreation District. Sheila has a diploma in Recreation and Leisure from SciAst and a degree in Physical Activity Studies from the U of R. Her career has been in the nonprofit sport, culture, and recreation section. She has held work positions with Saskatchewan Association of Rec Professionals, Trans-Canada Trail Coordinator, Fitness Instructor, Youth Outreach Worker, Saskatchewan Summer Games Manager, Performing Arts Coordinator, Recreation Coordinator, and is currently Executive Director for the Parkland Valley Sport, Culture and Recreation District. Sheila is an active community advocate for active transportation, school travel planning, and high five training. She has held volunteer chairperson roles to SARP. This is the Yorkton Nursery School Cooperative and is currently with the Yorkton Kalina Club, Dance Club, Kalina. Her past volunteer roles included 2010 Olympic Torch Relay Yorkton Committee, SKRA Conference Planning Committees, Saskatchewan Games Mission Staff, Hockey Team Treasurer, and Costume Coordinator. She likes to do puzzles, travel, and cook. She's married to her husband, Darcy McLeod, and they have two great kids, Jackson and Jenna. It's great to have you here with us, Sheila. Thank you. Our next panelist is Crystal Longman, Community Consultant with the Prairie Central District for Sport, Culture, and Recreation. Crystal works to provide educational and networking opportunities for sport, culture, and recreation practitioners and volunteers within the Prairie Central District. A University of Regina alumna, she has also held roles with the Touchwood Agency Tribal Council and the Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association. She is committed to lifelong learning, building relationships, and working collaboratively with the province's delivery system. Volunteerism is another way Crystal has developed her leadership abilities. The most significant experience for growth has been volunteering as an English teacher in South America and serving as co-vice chair for the 2022 Saskatchewan Winter Games. She is thankful for the experience and encourages others to serve in volunteer roles. Thank you, Crystal, for being here as a panelist. Our next panelist is Mimi Loden, Healthy Workplace Educator, Saskatchewan Health Authority, and fitness trainer. Mimi Loden has been working in the recreation field for almost 30 years. She started as fitness instructor in the 80s and has never stopped teaching in a variety of classes. She has her recreation technology diploma from SciAst, Kelsey campus, and following that enjoyed a 10-year position with the YWCA of Saskatoon as fitness and wellness director. She then moved to Regina for 5 years, where she worked with the Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association as a recreation consultant and then communications consultant. After moving back to Saskatoon, she worked as executive director for the Saskatoon Soccer Centre and then as in-motion consultant with Saskatoon Health Region. In the past 10 years, she's been working as healthy workplace educator, overseeing the 3 employee fitness centers, as well as building the Healthy Workplace Initiative, providing programs and services for its employees. She has now been with SHA for over 13 years. In addition to her role at SHA, Mimi continues teaching fitness classes and also has been at YWCA and then SPRA course conductor for almost 25 years. She provides training for people to become fitness leaders throughout Saskatchewan, including exercise therapy, group fundamentals, total body conditioning, step and choreography, aquatic exercise, and group cycle. Her focus has always been to inspire and motivate people, but mostly women, to become the best that they can be. Recreation and fitness is the best medicine for physical, social, and mental health. Again, thank you, Mimi, for participating today and sharing your views. So ladies, I'd just like to start. We've got a panel of esteemed leaders in the community, so a lot to learn from you all. I've got a list of questions here, and I'd just like to start by giving you an opportunity to talk about the roles you play in the organizations in which you belong. So it's going to be quite easy here. Pipe in when you'd like to, or if you have something to say. I'm going to take myself or put myself on mute while you guys start. So I'll just start in the order that I introduce you. Twyla.
Thanks very much, and Jamie, you know, you did very good job of explaining our roles here in our organizations and what we've done. But you know, I guess I could add on to that. And Mari also elaborated on the fact that recently Parks, Culture and Sport did have the opportunity, or has the privilege, to also now oversee the status of the Women Office. And really, we have found that it's been a great addition to our ministry and does fit nicely, particularly in the area of recreation and sport for women. And their mandate is even broader than that. It acts as a catalyst for all of government to ensure that gender is taken into account for policy consideration, legislation, and programs. So, you know, they bridge the connections between community and government stakeholders. So it's just great to have Mari and her team aboard. I guess what I could tell you is I have dedicated my career to the public service, you know, starting 26 years ago. And I've done that in addition to raising two beautiful young daughters and now a granddaughter, and also assist with a farming operation. My husband and I also own a grain farm just north of Craven here. So, you know, I like to keep busy, and in my spare time like to get out and enjoy nature and everything that Saskatchewan has to offer within our provincial parks. I'll leave it for there.
Great, thank you, Twyla. Sheila, do you have something to add here?
I guess I just wanted to say that it's been a good career being involved in recreation. And one of the things that I've noticed in our area within the Parkland Valley area is that we do have a lot of women involved in leadership roles in recreation, and really appreciate that, and having kind of that gender balance when we have meetings and in our community. So as someone who's been involved in quite some time as well, close to the 30 years as well, we see lots of things change, and with our nonprofits, and just seeing that things are improving as far as the gender balance. However, there's always room for improvement, and things like this pandemic do throw curveballs into all of our organizations. And again, just the whole juggling of family and work-life balance, just trying to manage that and staying on top of that. And us as women who are part of the group leading our organizations, what can we do to support other women within our organizations to try and maintain that work-life balance?
Thank you, Sheila. And as part of the Parkland Valley Regional District, I am thankful for you doing all the work you do with this pandemic. So, Crystal, next.
Good morning. I would say that one of the roles I play is a liaison, you know, trying to connect people's and programs to services and the things that we provide. Also, a little bit of program design and organizing workshops. On a personal level, I think I ask good questions. You know, it's important to ask good questions. So I ask good questions when we're looking into things, and it brings around some conversation. I think also because I'm quiet, sometimes I bring that calming energy to the table, and also bring a sense of humor. And so I think, like, personally, those are some good qualities to have, you know, to be calming and to bring a laugh whenever it's needed, and just to be able to look into things and explore where, what direction you're going or why you're doing something. So that spiritual aspect to things, you know.
Thank you, Crystal. Mimi, how are you doing?
Good, thanks. I guess I would add that throughout my career, I have been mostly working with women. I started at the YWCA in Saskatoon, and that's really where I got my feet wet, and really gave me the sort of the foundation of learning about how important supporting women is. So the YWCA, as you know, is an international women's organization. And then just as being a fitness instructor and a trainer of instructors, it is majority of women. And so I think those leadership skills that we learn in fitness leadership carries over into other aspects of life. And more recently, in the last 14 years, working in healthcare in a organization that's mostly women providing support for other people. So they're caregivers, they care for everybody else in their lives and often don't care for themselves. So our role is to ensure that healthcare workers are taking care of themselves first and utmost. So I guess that's just something that's sort of led me throughout my career, is really being able to help women and take care of themselves and do what they need to do to be healthy, because we're no good if we don't take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And how many of us forget to do that? Work and life balance, and then where's the time for you? But I think more and more women are taking that time. I think it's so important. And I'd like to thank the SPRA for such a wonderful complement of women on this panel. It's going to be an interesting discussion. So going into the questions, I have several, like I said. Some of them are about qualities of leadership. Then we'll go into some challenges that maybe we faced, and leadership development and mentorship. So going into the qualities of leadership, I'm going to ask a few of these questions. We'll see how the time allows. We'll see how much engagement we have, and we'll just keep flowing. So I guess I'll just go with the first one here. How do you define a great leader? And what does it take to be a great leader? What are some traits that you feel are necessary as a woman today? And anyone can jump in here. Absolutely.
Well, I can start. I feel that women need to gain confidence, first of all, in their ability to do the work and lead. And so once you have confidence in what you're doing and confidence in the work that you do, you're better able to lead and be able to do that. One of the first things I learned from my mentor at the YW, Darlene Bessie, was that, you know, make a decision. I've hired you to do the job. I want you to do the best you can do. Maybe it's not the way that somebody else would do it, but having someone be able to empower you to do the work, I think was sort of a really good lesson. And once you feel that way, you're more likely to succeed in that.
I guess I could add just a little bit to that. I certainly had, you know, the fact that great leaders do need to empower the people around them, and I think that's really important. And also to acknowledge the fact that we all make mistakes, but we learn from them, and that helps us achieve our goals. And I guess the other comments I would suggest would be, you know, fostering an inclusive team. So having you know, people with disabilities and color, and as well as women, I think is all important to that inclusive team. And I guess lastly, I think you need to value in communication, you need to value integrity, innovation, and you really need to be self-aware of yourself. And I guess finally, I think for women, we possess something that maybe men aren't as good at. Not all of them, though. There's some that are very good. But empathy and compassion, I think, is also some important elements in leadership.
And we all know that women are really good multitaskers. So when you're raising families, and organizational skills and multitasking is really good leadership qualities.
Hi, it's Crystal. I just wanted to say that passion, I think, is really important for a leader. You have to be passionate about the work that you're doing. So passion, integrity, authenticity. It's also really important to be loving and empathetic, and to be of service. You have to be willing to give of yourself, to give of your gifts, to give of your time, to move into those areas of leadership. And you have to be willing to be a leader. You know, sometimes people come looking at you to do things, and you're like, no, not me. I'm not a leader. And maybe it's because you don't feel confident or you're not ready to step into that position. But I think it's important to be willing, and like that, the choose to challenge aspect of it, right? Challenge yourself to move into a leadership position, even if you're not ready, because a lot of people around you want to see you succeed, and they'll step in and they'll help you become a leader. So willingness, I think, is a big aspect as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I think some of the things that I learned from most are those things that made me uncomfortable. So unfortunately, I'm one of those people who rarely says no to something, and so even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, and I would agree, doing those things that make you step outside of your comfort level, and you just build the confidence as you go, right? And it's okay to make mistakes along the way, and I'm huge on just constant improving, and we learn from the challenges that we take on. So I think that's things that we should carry with us.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. This is great conversation. I'm going to lump two questions together because Twyla touched on this, but it was also touched on just a bit, and I want to give you a chance to just explore it. What is the value of having women in places and spaces where decisions are being made? And also, how can having female leaders lead to more inclusive workplaces?
I guess I could add to my comment earlier a little bit. I really think that inclusive workplace really provides for a unique perspective and voice to the issues and practices, and women certainly would bring that to the table. And I think it does also, at the end of the day, provide for stronger policy and creates equal opportunity and allows for some innovation.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to touch on this question?
Well, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was just going to say that, that although we think things are changing, and I mean, they have changed, but I think we have a long way to go as far as having women in decision-making positions. Women comprise only under 20% of board members for Canada's top 500 companies, and that right there gives you an indication of how far we have to go. So it's a male-dominated world, and I think we have to keep pushing for it and empowering women to take those chances, to take those leadership roles, because I think oftentimes we're felt like, no, it's not, it's not really for me, I'll let somebody else do it. But I mean, we as women have to support, especially those of us that, many of us have been in our careers for many years. We have to empower those young women to take those chances.
And I agree with you, Mimi, as far as yes, we still have a long way to go as far as 20% of women fill board positions. I guess sometimes I think about how do we change kind of our structures so that women who are already juggling perhaps work, family, all the other things already, to allow them to take on those roles. And give them the time and the space to do that. And so that's one of the things that sometimes I wonder, like, how do we change the way we currently operate in our system that allows, we hear this often, oh, we need younger people to be involved and to be, you know, taking on those leadership roles, but they're also already consumed with finding that life-work balance kind of thing. So I think we have really a big picture to look at. How do we change how things are structured in order to make it more welcoming for women and supportive of women to join?
And just adding, I think that anytime you invite someone new to the table, you broaden the perspective. So there's that. And then in terms of broadening that, there's also balance. You know, sometimes something gets top heavy and you bring in a new energy, and that balances things and helps them to, when things are in balance, work goes more smoothly. And so that, I think that women can bring balance, they can broaden the perspective, and it's just nice and refreshing sometimes to have a new view to look at the work that you do. And so new view, new voice, it's empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. The new voice and then the history is always nice to have. And just touching on Mimi's point to the male-dominated world, I have a question here. How can men serve as allies to women in the workplace and in their community?
Sorry, I just got to jump in on this one. I'm really excited about it.
Good, go for it. Yes.
So I am the vice co-chair of the 2022 Saskatchewan Winter Games, and our chair, Val, had pushed for a lot of female leadership, and our chair, our co-chairs, our games manager, and all our division leads are female, and that is by design. We wanted to nurture female leaders and put them in positions of leadership, and the way we did that was by mentoring them with male partners who had a lot of experience and were willing to work and help them learn those positions. And so that's when I talk about balance, right? We have these young females willing to learn and step into this leadership position, and then the males saying, I can help you with that, and providing guidance and support for them as they learn the work behind the games. So I think that there's definitely a role for both, right, to support each.
I think Crystal summed it up perfectly. I think that men have to be champions of equality, and it sounds like that's certainly what's happened at the Winter Games, and I certainly commend that team for doing just that. You know, and they also need to make more space for women, and again, that seems to have happened with the Winter Games. So, you know, kudos to your team there, Crystal. And then you know, and this gets back to the champions, but they need to be advocates of their coworkers, and I think more and more you're starting to see that. And they need to be able to call out inequality when they see it as well, and that's a tough thing to do, but a really important piece. Men shouldn't remain silent when they see inequality occurring in the workplace. And then I guess one final piece I'd add is that, you know, men in our personal lives too need to be supportive. You do really need that element. It's, you know, career is important, but it does blend with our personal life, and you need the support of your man in your personal life.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that we have to educate our sons about this as well, because I have 3 sons and 1 daughter. They're all adults, and I've worked really hard, you know, as a single mother to teach them the importance of equality. And I think that that's a really good message for us, not just as women, but as, you know, parents in general, to be able to teach our sons so that things do change long term.
All right, good. Thank you, guys. You have all gotten the list of questions. Are there any questions under qualities of leadership that you'd like to have an opportunity to answer? I know that Crystal was waiting for that number 9 there. I wondered if anything else jumped out. I'll ask one more before we go into the challenges portion. Just having female leaders lead to stronger, more resilient communities. And how? Maybe
Well,
Sheila, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I talked last. You go next.
I think the whole piece around women just being involved in community, maintaining some presence in volunteering and doing, roles within our communities really helps build a more broad understanding of community. The whole understanding of, girls and girls being involved in community as well. I think in the past we've had really strong representation of boys and boys activities in communities, and really looking at how do we also support girls in our communities. And I think us as women supporting our girls and staying involved in the community and taking on leadership roles in community, whether it's sport, culture, or recreation. What are those things that engage girls and women to stay, interested, involved, and connected to their community?
And I was just going to say that, some skills women just come more naturally to women. So women tend to be community builders. We have critical thinking skills. Not that men don't, but it's just kind of something that I think women are just comes more easily to us, to be those strong community builders and inclusiveness and that kind of, in that kind of area. So I think having more women in those positions will lead to that. And it kind of shows in some communities and some even countries where the women are leaders. It kind of shows the difference.
Great, this is amazing conversation. I'm just bedazzled by it all. So let's go into challenges. And I just want to mention to the audience watching that there is an opportunity to ask questions in the question box if you are interested. We're going to take the last 15 minutes of this webinar to answer some of the questions that you've put forth. So feel free to do that if questions come up as we're speaking. So with some challenges that we have faced during our time in our professional lives and our lives, can you explain, I guess, how you've reached your level of success, particularly considering society's existing gender gap we just talked about in leadership positions? Why don't we start, we'll go in order again. Twyla.
Thank you. This was an interesting question, and I reflected on it for some time because it really took me to more of, what were my personal challenges that I had to overcome to be a successful leader, and did some of them include a gender gap? And so, one of the biggest pieces I had to overcome was the fact that I certainly managing family and a career. My career is really important to me, but family comes first, and it always has. And so, early on, when my husband and I were first married, we moved around for his career. So in the first 4 years of marriage, we lived in 2 different provinces and 5 different cities. And I reflect on that now, and it did limit my growth, but it never stopped me from planning my career path. And so I think one of the panelists alluded to this earlier. Just continue to drive towards your goals. And in fact, at one point I considered going into nursing. So there's lots of options, and one should not overlook them. And to this day, I still balance professional career with family obligations.
I would have to say this kind of the same experience, switching back and forth, kind of taking turns at, me and my husband, whose turn was it to career need to go in a certain way. So same type of things, moved to a small town. We're kind of both in the same career or same field. So how do I recreate myself that we can still be in the same sector? And so that took me in a different angle around doing contract work and within sport, culture, and recreation. So really developing those, how do you look at it differently and not being afraid to go out and give it a try, right? And like I said earlier, you always are learning from some of those things that make you uncomfortable, and you just continue to learn and build on your skills.
Right. So I think for me, it's been having an educational background. So going to university, getting the sport and rec admin degree through the kinesiology program there. So that is a solid foundation to part of the success. Another thing is working at the grassroots level, at the community level. There's openings there. Start there. And I like living in rural areas, so I've just kind of moved in positions that help me stay at home and work. And then the other thing is approaching professional development intentionally by volunteering and saying yes when people ask me to do something, like today, or adjudicating grants, working with the games. So watching how other people do things has been a real key to my own success, right? If I go into a workshop and I see a great point that someone's doing, then I'm like, oh, well, maybe I can incorporate that. And so every place I am, I'm learning something from other people around me. And I think that has really led to my development over the years.
And for me, I guess some of the biggest challenges for me was I had a whole life before I started my career. I already had 4 kids. They were all quite young. And I went back to school. Well, I went, took my recreation degree, and started my career then when I had children that were quite young, and I was a single parent. So I had to, I was driving them around to schools and different daycares, and that was a real challenge, but I was very determined that I was going to have a career and look after my kids on my own. So I found that sometimes the society doesn't see women in this kind of situation with, being a single parent with a lot of kids, that they can actually handle the work. And so I think that's something that it's probably changed quite a bit, but I think that's something that continues to be, well, I don't want to hire her because she's going to be having kids, and then she's going to be on mat leave, those sort of things. So I think for me, I already had all my kids, but balancing the family and work life, and being able to be strong in your conviction that yes, you can do this work. So that was one of the challenges, but I mean, now it's way in the past, so I can sort of support other women in that.
For sure, maybe, and I echo you a bit, being a single mom with 2 kids and coming into the recreation field. I've been blessed to have workplaces where they value the work-life balance, and I'm even able to, my kids are 15 and 18 now, but bringing them in their little parkas to whatever meeting I was in, and it's changing now, I know, with different organizations and committees, and it brings me into another question here. When thinking about working mothers specifically, do you feel that organizational culture has changed much over the year? I can see it. I'm just wondering about everyone here. So we can go with Twyla again first.
You're very orderly. Format. I like it. I've got an accounting background, so this is great. So definitely, I do believe that there has been a little bit of an organizational cultural change. I think workplaces, for the most part, are a little bit more family friendly. Certainly, there are policies in place. And, you know, I think COVID, if it's had, well, I don't even want to say it, but if there's been any positive, I think businesses have realized that the flexibility they're giving parents now as a result of this pandemic really has, in many cases, if not most, yielded probably higher productivity, reduced sick leave. You know, so I think businesses have really, I think we're going to see a change even when COVID, when we return to normal. I think flexible work hours will be important and will help productivity and boost, you know, profits for businesses.
Thank you, Twyla. Who's next? Sheila.
I would agree that things are changing, and I know when when my kids were really small, I was doing contract work. So being able to work from home and picking up contracts here and there while the kids were young was kind of where my career was at that point. And I think it's important that we support women that in changing how we structure our organizations and be open-minded to the flexibility that there can be in order to get the work done. And that was always something that was always a challenge back then, you know, 15, 20 years ago, just saying how, you know, confirming that the work can be done, even though it might not be structured from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 kind of thing, that it will get done, and it will get done in a very professional way and be produced in a professional way.
Thank you. Great. Crystal.
Well, I'm not a mother, but I have colleagues who are parents, and I think that during the pandemic, we've seen that more supports are needed for families, mothers in particular. And, you know, it's nice when an organization can be flexible and be adaptive. And I think it's been a benefit to people in the rural areas, specifically to work from a home office, because, you know, when you're expected to be a teacher, a mother, an employee, and you know, a daycare worker all at once, it's hard to do all of that. So it's nice to have that option again to work from home, and for your employer to be flexible about that, not to feel like you're burdening somebody because you're like, oh geez, I can't come in today, or oh no, I can't find a sitter. So feeling like you deserve it and it's given willingly, I think it's a good thing.
It's a great perspective, Crystal. Mimi?
Well, yeah, I agree with what everybody has said, and I do think COVID is going to change that, and I just think it's going to get better, because the more women that do take those leadership roles, the better it's going to be for the women that are working for them or whatever, because women understand what women go through. So I think it's just going to get better.
Yeah, I feel that too, even with over the pandemic, having facilities meetings here in Foam Lake over Zoom. I have a water park committee that's starting up now. Several of my committee members have small children, and they are just over the moon that we are having Zoom meetings at 8 p.m. at night, because they've gone through the whole putting the babies to bed and they're ready to volunteer. So in that capacity, they're more productive and feel like they are contributing, I guess, which is so wonderful, because we really value them. So and just going into the next question here, and I think there's a lot of it has been answered, but what effect has the pandemic, we have to talk about this, had on women's opportunities in the workplace, and particularly on women's opportunities to lead their organizations and communities? With being the leisure services director here in charge of all facilities, it's been a burden. I mean, really good things have come out of it, including our food bank and our community support team here, but having to shoulder all COVID regulations, rules, regulations, like things like that it's been tough. We've had really good support, and I'm just wondering how everyone here is feeling, and you know, how you feel about this question particularly.
I'll start.
Yes, please.
For something different, I'll start. Yeah. Before I get to that question, I do want to just elaborate a little bit on the previous question, because, you know, we focused on this flexibility and the need to consider women in the workplace. But, you know, something else that I feel has changed or has increased, because even my husband was already very supportive. But this flexibility isn't just for women, right? There are many men in the workplace now that have several parental and other responsibilities. And I think we need to keep that in mind too, that these policies should be inclusive for all. So I just wanted to add that. And what effects has the pandemic had on women's opportunities? I guess now that the status of Women Office is with Parks, Culture and Sport, you know, I do have, you know, some more insight into really statistically the impacts. And, you know, the recovery piece of it from the first wave really was slower for women with school-age children, and women comprised the vast majority of all employment losses in Canada due to the pandemic. So, you know, it was significant at about 70%. And, you know, even before the pandemic, women already were more likely to work in part-time roles. And the majority of them were minimum wage workers. And again, those part-time roles are slower to return. So I think we've talked a lot about gender equality and some successes, but there's still work to be done.
Thank you, Swyla. Sheila, do you want to weigh in?
Well, I think with the pandemic, what this has shown is that technology has really opened the opportunities for women as well as men to have that flexibility. As you said, people with young children, once they get the children to sleep, there's their opportunity to either volunteer or to continue on with, you know, doing some of those leadership roles. And to me, that creates the window of opportunity to keep them engaged and to get young family, young mothers engaged in the community that way. And again, going back to remembering as a current leader of this organization, remembering the challenges of young parents on trying to juggle those things, and keeping, now that my kids are older, 20 and 16, you know, being very open and flexible to understanding that, yes, we need to juggle things so that people can stay involved and not feel excluded because of, you know, caring for family members, that kind of thing. So I think it's, I think the technology has just, I think, blown up to make it, to show that there is tools out there to make it work.
Yeah, just look at what we're doing right now.
I think one of the effects is that it stopped everything. Like there was no programming and services for a while, and months with nothing going on in terms of offering things. But it gave leaders or programmers an opportunity to step back, look at things that had been left on the back burner, kind of warm and needed more decision making or more time to work through, so they could go back and look at things that had sat still for a while and to problem solve. I think it it's also creating an opportunity for people to reimagine what their work looks like now and what it could be, you know, moving things online, connecting it in a new way. You know, if I wanted to go see someone before, it would be like, okay, well, I got to get in the car and drive 3 hours over here to do this meeting. And that was kind of the way we thought of it. And now if I want to reach out, we could have a Zoom meeting, and you can have more meetings quickly and almost as intimate as you could in, you know, in person. So that works out. And just that an opportunity to, I think, reimagine, rebuild, and create something that works for you and works for your community, I think is the real potential moving forward.
Thank you. Mimi?
Well, I totally agree with what everybody has said. And the only thing I would add, just backing up on Twyla's comment, was the fact that most women, it was women in lower paid jobs that have lost their employment. And so I think one thing that we have to push for is affordable childcare so that women can go back to work. And I think that's again another really empowering force for women is childcare. So that was just my only other comment about that. But
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of women are working to pay their childcare bill, and that's it. So yeah, there's a definite need for that. Absolutely. So thank you, ladies. This was the challenges portion. Now we're going to move into leadership development and mentorship, and I'm going to switch it up. And Mimi can go first on this one. Yeah, we're going to go backwards this time, guys. So Mimi, you mentioned your mentor, but do you or have you at any point in your career had a strong female mentor or someone you looked up to? And you can give an opportunity to tell us a little bit about that person.
Well, I did mention Darlene Bessie, who was Saskatoon YWCA Executive Director, but she was also, and probably is still, really involved in the national YWCA. So for me, she was sort of the first person in my life that really helped me understand the importance of empowerment of women. And you know, working at the YWCA, I saw women coming into the shelter that were just, you know, at the lowest part of their lives, and how the YW actually helped them. So I think that really gave me the sort of that foundation of learning from somebody. I worked with her, well, for 10 years, and we're still friends, so that's nice. And then another person that I worked with when I started at the Health Authority was Linda Martin, who was one of the founding members of InMotion. And her, again, same thing, just those strong, understanding, empowering women that allow the employees to do their best, you know, and empower them to do that. And I think that kind of mentorship is really important. And if I can just add on to that, is that we, as people that are sort of, you know, in the middle or towards the end of our careers, that we have to continue to mentor women. And I have done that also through my fitness leadership training, which has all been women, mostly women. So yeah, I would say those two have really had huge impacts on my life.
Wonderful, thank you. We'll go to Crystal next.
So I've had two mentors. The first one is Val Sleuth. She used to be a university prof for me, and she helped me through my practicum. We have to do practicum to on the case, so she helped me into a position there, and through my first position at Saskatchewan Parks and Recreation Association. I worked there for 2 years out of university, and through the years she's just been available. And then last year she asked me if I wanted to volunteer, and I was like, sure. So now she's mentoring me through the 2022 Saskatchewan Winter Games position, and through that board and learning how to run a games. Another one that has been really helpful to me is Denise Urbanski. In another lifetime, I used to work in employment services, and so Denise does the Dragon 9 training. And I don't know if she knows I think of her as a mentor, but I do, because she's been really encouraging over the years that I was in employment, very approachable, and she listened to me and she believed in me. And I think that is important to have in a mentor, for someone who is open to and open to talking to you and encouraging and finding opportunities to connect, kind of like one-on-one on a personal basis, not just work-related, but life-related. And so that's been really important for me, and I appreciate the help that both Val and Denise have given me.
Right. Thank you. Sheila, you're next.
Well, I don't necessarily have any one specific person, but I've always really admired all the women provincially, that when you went to meetings and participated in meetings, and they would get up and they'd be able to speak very eloquently about recreation and the importance of recreation and sport culture, and be able to just communicate their thoughts. That's something that I always struggle with and always have to give it some concentrated effort about gathering my thoughts. So I really appreciated watching all the women through my career demonstrate, their passion for what they enjoy doing, for their work, for everything that they do. So really, it's been a lifetime or 20-year span of watching really strong women be able to get up and communicate and talk about the importance of recreation, sport, culture in our field. So all those that I've seen, I truly admire the work that they do.
Yeah, and the leaders in our provincial committees there've been some women with SARP and with SPRA and within the government. So incredible to see that and to watch them go and advocate for our industry. And on that note, Twyla.
Well, I guess certainly I think mentorship is important. And if you asked me sort of what experiences have shaped my career, mentors would be one. And also being a mentor. I think it's equally as important to give back as well as a mentor. But I guess if I were to touch on a particular mentor, well, it'd be like Sheila. It wouldn't be a particular mentor, but as you can imagine, deputy ministers in the government of Saskatchewan have typically been male. It's male-dominated role. And I would say in the last month, I think 3 females were hired. So we might be getting closer to an equity position in there. But what has really been important to me is that the female deputies have actually ensured that they support one another, as opposed to, kind of competing. And particularly since the pandemic started, we've actually gone to Zoom functions for just the female deputies. Don't tell the males, okay? Because it's an inclusive group. But to me, that's really important. It does provide a safe space to talk about what's happening and with your colleagues. And I just have found it really, really useful.
Great, thank you. A few more questions regarding mentorship. I'm going to lump a few together here. How can women support or bolster leadership in younger, more junior level women and girls in their organizations? And then have you or would you be willing to mentor young women who aspire to become leaders in the recreation industry? And anyone goes, whoever wants to answer this, pop on.
Well, I think I'll just say a couple of things. I think Sheila touched on the aspect of volunteering, and I think volunteering is a really great way for young women to get experience in leadership roles. And I've been a huge volunteer person all my life. So I've always been on either a committee or a board or something. And I started quite young, and it really helped me as a person develop some of those leadership skills, because when you're volunteering on a committee, they're not going to really fire you, so you have some flexibility in the work you do, and you can learn from others that have done that in the past. So I think I think volunteering is a great way to get started in leadership roles, and it builds confidence. It's great for decision making and definitely networking skills. So all of those, I think, comprise some good training and abilities for women to get leadership experience.
Absolutely right. That volunteering start, like Crystal said, grassroots, get down to it, and you learn while doing. A lot of us small town people are sitting on several boards and committees, and that's how you kind of gain the networking and the decision making, the leadership, or you learn from others, which is so wonderful. Who is next? Who would like to speak? Crystal.
I was gonna add that the direct ask, directly invite people to become involved. Because people read things, they're like, oh, well, maybe. But if someone directly asks you, it's a little harder to say no, especially when they're encouraging and want to help you out, right? So the direct ask, I think, is really important. And just by being invited and being present, you learn a lot. If you're one of those curious kind of people, you can ask questions. If you're quiet, you can just sit back and watch, and you learn a lot just from being in the room. So invite them nicely and let them learn in their own style, right? Because I think that there's this idea that leaders have to be strong, and I'm a leader, you hear me roar. But like over the years, I've noticed that there are very gentle, kind female leaders, and that's kind of something I want to balance myself out with. So I'm not coming in like, oh, crazy strong, but balance it out so that there's a gentleness to me as well. And that's one of the things I'm watching for in other leaders right now, and trying to bring into my own style.
Absolutely.
And I agree with what has been said so far. The whole volunteering, really you get that chance to participate and be involved, and the whole learning from each other. Also, just in every day, watching other women in your day-to-day being, and learning from them and seeing how they handle things, and asking for advice, that kind of stuff, or sharing ideas and stories. And I always like sharing stories because it really shows that you learn a lot from your past experience, and you just build on the things that you've done and the things you've experienced, and it just makes you a better person and a better leader.
Yeah, for sure. And in sharing those stories and experiences, you find so many commonalities between a lot of your colleagues. So that forms connections as well, which is so nice to hear. And then you find partnerships as well when you're working on different projects and things like that. One more question before we go into, I'm not sure, Kristen, if we have questions from the audience, but I'll ask one more question, and it's number 19 on your sheets, ladies. How can the SPRA support the growth of female leaders in recreation? Anyone can jump in here.
I think that you might have to declare it a focus. Things get moved when they're a focus, and so you might have to declare it a focus the same way you declare youth leadership as something you're working towards. So declare it and begin to work on it. I think, and this is just me plugging for some fun. I think it'd be nice to have a women's wellness weekend or a conference of some sort, right? Just for female leaders. I went through some facilitation training through CAUSE. It was CAUSE at the time. They've changed their name to Canadian Women in Sport. And it was a bunch of female facilitators. It was a great weekend, learned a lot. And it was also really nice to connect with other women, right? As we're learning and leading. And I follow a lot of the women on Facebook now, just after meeting them for a weekend. because there's that connection, the ability, again, to learn professional, but connect as people and connect as women. And so that would be an awesome opportunity to learn and get to meet new.
Anyone else like to jump in here? That was great focus.
I think Crystal captured it succinctly. And the only piece I would add is that, I commend SPRA for doing this panel today. I think this is one of those opportunities that gives folks a chance to have open dialogue and conversation. And I'm really looking forward to see if the audience can stump us with some questions. So it'll be interesting.
Great segue. Let's move into those questions. Kristen, if you want to jump back on, do you have questions that the audience has? I can't see them here on my screen.
Yes.
That the audience has asked.
I do, for sure. Thank you so much for that. And thanks to everyone. Fabulous conversation here. So we have a couple questions from the audience. The first being, what advice do you have for young female recreation professionals entering the workforce with regards on how to overcome the old boys club mentality that seemingly still exists in many organizations and communities?
Well, I would just say that sometimes we just have to push our way in to certain spaces, and women have always been taught to be good and listen, and little girls have to be nice. We don't have to be that way. So once we understand, that we do have a voice and what we say is important, and get into the I don't know if it's a specific organization or just the field in general. I think volunteering is a great way to get into an organization that you want to work in. And I know over my career, whenever I've hired employees, they were usually people that volunteered for the organization in one way or another. So and just keep your voice strong and be diligent in what you believe in.
Anyone else? Go ahead, sorry.
I guess I would just add quickly, and it relates a little bit here to volunteering, but take that opportunity to seize opportunities. So if something comes out, volunteer. You're not always going to get asked to volunteer, although I think that's a great mentorship type of activity, but take the opportunity to volunteer. Or seize an opportunity in a workplace that you don't think is being addressed, and just be bold and take it on. And I think this has been touched on already, but be prepared. I don't know, I think the rest of the panelists have spent a fair bit of time thinking about these questions like I have, and anything I've undertaken, I've just really worked hard to be prepared so that you can speak when an opportunity presents itself.
And I think let your results speak. You're going to go in, you're going to do a good job. You're hardworking. Do the job and let the results speak for themselves, because a lot of people are, you're working towards the same thing. And if they see that you're working just as hard and getting great results, then they'll hopefully they'll come around. I can't guarantee it, but I'll let your results speak for themselves.
And I'm a big fan of the try something as opposed to nothing. So my thing is seize that opportunity that is in front of you, and show that you are a equal participant in, the work that you're doing, right? And I think, taking on that role and demonstrating and showing that you can be just as successful in taking on a task. I think that's important to show that you have the leadership and you can do the work as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, ladies. Kristen, is there another question?
There is. So the next audience question we received, are there any leadership resources or training opportunities that you would recommend? So books, professional development opportunities, TED Talks, that sort of thing.
One of the first things I did after finishing school is I joined Toastmasters. And I was a member for about 6 years, and it was a really good experience to join that, and the different people that were involved in that organization when I was involved with it was great to see, and just the skills of some of the skills around speaking, that kind of thing, really helped me along the way. And so to me, if you see there's things that you feel you need improving, there's lots of opportunities out there, and sometimes you just have to look for them.
Yeah, and when I started early in my career too, I joined Saskatoon has a women's network, and it's just different women and entrepreneurs, different entrepreneur, any kind of organization, and that was really helpful too, because you learn from other women, and there's opportunities to speak there as well. So, and it was a networking organization, which networking is hugely important.
Another opportunity to learn how to lead is lead a community event. For real, get into a big community event and join those meetings and learn how to lead. That's the most practical place to get that experience, right? Because it's one thing to read about things, and you have to be able to do it and to practice it consistently to start feeling comfortable with your leadership abilities. Community events, going right from the beginning to the end of the program, or an event, great way to get experience.
I guess the only thing I would add is I think you also need to learn a little bit about yourself and those around you. So, take opportunities to do any kind of personal reflection or personal inventories. I know there's Myers-Briggs out there. There's also 360s you can do so you get feedback from those around you. I think it's really important, because then what you can find out is your strengths and your areas to improve. And then I think that takes you into the types of reading or activities you would want to pursue to help your growth in that area.
Great, Twyla. I'm just going to do a shameless plug for the SPRA, who have many training opportunities throughout the year, especially with the symposium that is usually in April. They're turning onto a virtual format, I believe, this year, and I'm not sure if Kristen wants to speak a little bit on that. But the SPRA throughout the year has multiple opportunities to enrich your career. Absolutely. Kristen, did you want to speak a bit more on those?
Thanks so much, Jamie. Yeah, SPRA does offer a number of leadership opportunities and professional development opportunities throughout the year. The next opportunity coming up will be our Industry Builders Learning Series, which is will be replacing the usual in-person symposium this spring. So be watching for some more information on that through our newsletters and upcoming communications. We also have an annual conference that we host each year, as well as some youth leadership development training throughout the year. So just lots of opportunities. And if anyone's interested in learning more, just check out our website. It's www.spra.sk.ca. And with that, we have a couple more questions here. I'm not sure if we can get to all of them, but we have about 5 more minutes, so maybe we'll touch on just one more question here related to communications. So the question is, do you tailor or change how you communicate in situations where you're meeting with primarily men? Again, touching on the old boys club mentality, are you still comfortable in communicating the same as you usually would? And then also, as a second part to that question, how do you address heap-eating, which I've also heard referred to as mansplaining?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
well, the mansplaining thing is a hard one to address for me, but as far as communication, I think, you know, I like Sheila's comment about taking Toastmasters, learning how to speak in a way that, you know, makes you feel and makes you sound like, you know, you're knowing what you're talking about. I think being professional in the way you speak to people is always important. And, you know, I have found in the last few years in my career, the way people speak is kind of getting lazy. Like, I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but just build up your own way of speaking so that you're clear, you're concise, and you're able to get your message across. I think that's important. And I like Sheila's comment about Toastmasters or something that will help you do that.
If I could just add a little bit, I would say that I think the question was, should you be different when you're talking to a room full of men than you are typically? And, you know, I think the best success long run is be authentic. Be your authentic self. Don't try to be somebody else. It just doesn't come off well. So I think the Toastmasters and all of that helps you prepare to speak in front of a group of individuals, but don't try to be somebody you're not.
Good one.
Absolutely, that's great. Would anyone else like to take a stab at this question, or will we send it back to Kristen? I like the authentic self, absolutely, and it's sometimes hard. I have an assistant here, and sometimes she hears me on the phone using my telephone voice, and I have to remind myself I'm just one person. So, Kristen, I'll hand it back to you.
Awesome. Well, wow. I wish that we were in front of a live audience here, because I feel like there would be a huge round of applause. So I'll clap on everyone's behalf. Such awesome conversation and inspiring women we have here today with us. So on behalf of SPRA, we would like to extend a huge thank you to our special guest, moderator, wonderful panelists, and everyone else who was able to join us today. We're so fortunate in the recreation industry to have so many strong, empathetic, and passionate women in leadership like this group to look to as positive role models. In thanks, we're pleased to offer a small token of our appreciation in a form of a gift card to a major bookstore in our province. So feel free to use that to purchase some resources or whatever you'd like. We hope that this discussion inspires and empowers everyone to lead and support the women and girls in your life to lead. Together, we can raise each other up. We can all choose to challenge for gender equity today on International Women's Day and every day. So thank you again to everyone, to our panelists, to our moderator, to our special guests, and our audience, of course, and happy International Women's Day.
Thank you.
Thanks all.